Sudipta, coming back to you, the two buzzwords in today's business environment, one is artificial intelligence, the other being Viksit Bharat 2047. We are still about 21 years away from that, but this is a credit-hungry country where the digital backbone is now in place. For NBFCs in particular, how do you see the roadmap for the next decade or so?
I think that's a very interesting question. And if we do a little bit of a back of the envelope calculation, right? Viksit Bharat, we are talking about a $30 trillion size of, ballpark, $30 trillion size of economy. Now, if you see the overall sort of credit in retail credit, and let's focus on non-food retail credit, it's roughly about $2.5 trillion right now, about 70-80% of the Indian GDP. And NBFC's share out of that is 0.5. Now, if I were to say that in 2047, when I'm in Viksit Bharat, I want a credit to GDP ratio of somewhere between 130 to 150, which is a fair number for a developed country, right? Some countries are very high level, but I think that's a safe number as well. So we are talking about a credit base in 2047 of anywhere between 40 to 45 trillion US dollars, right? Now, if I were to say NBFC's current share is 20%, NBFC's share, the way NBFCs are growing, 18 to 20% growth compared to a bank's of 11-12% credit growth, the NBFC share should be about 30% by now, which means NBFC's share of the entire credit in the GDP should be $17 trillion, up from $0.5 trillion. Now, if you do a CAGR of that, NBFCs will have to grow at 18 to 20% for the next couple of years. Continuous 15 years of growth at 18 to 20% is difficult. It is not easy. But the fact is that, if the NBFCs manage to do that, I think 12 to 15% growth rate is quite possible. So you are looking at a base of about 12 to 13 trillion US dollar of credit base in Viksit Bharat. Now that's basically taking the size almost 20 times from where it is today. So frankly, every NBFC in India, whether be it upper layer NBFC, middle layer NBFC or base layer NBFC, if we have to get to that $30 trillion, we're talking about 10 times the size of that. Just simple maths. Now, obviously, that is the roadmap. Now, for that roadmap, you need a lot of regulatory support, you need a lot of government support, and you need a lot of flow of capital. And frankly, very good risk management practices. Because accidents slow you down. So you have to avoid accidents if you have to go there. And obviously, you require a benign geopolitics.
So let me get both of you in on this as well, in terms of the biggest challenges we're trying to solve and to build on what Sudipta said as well. Hitesh?
So if you ask me in terms of the roadmap, just building on what Sudipta said, I think first and foremost, risk management is super critical because at that pace of growth, the guardrails have to be really, really strong. Second, I would think in 2047 at the size at which Sudipta mentioned, and I agree, if an economy has to double, triple, quadruple in sprints of 5, 7, 10, 15 years, financial services will grow at 1.5x of the GDP growth. That's been historically the case. We look at all countries around the world, that's been the case. Now, whether the construct as we see it today, NBFC, upper layer, middle layer, banks, etc. will exist at all in 20 years from now, I don't know the answer. And our regulator has been absolutely fantastic in making sure that they are a step ahead of where it is. Again, if you look at the last 70, 80 years, not a single Indian bank has failed, and our regulator has been absolutely fantastic.
I think the innovative lab at RBI for the fintechs is something that is a world beater.
That is one example. You look at everything else that RBI has done or the quasi-regulatory setup has done, DPI, a lot has been spoken about. I think it's all fantastic. So risk management surely has to be really embedded on the ground. Growth opportunities for credit growth is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Whether it is NBFC or bank, I think that is less relevant. What is going to be more relevant is whether you're current in your technology or whether you have a legacy mindset, because the future is going to belong to players which are more agile in technology and which are able to make technology relevant for customers. I think they will be the firms that will grow.